Hello folks, it is time for some more 40k rantage. Well, more Gestalt gaming rantage really, because I asked you in a very wise prompt the other day to answer the following question, and it was, what is your least favourite tabletop wargame or game in general, and what turned you off of it? So, looking forward to reading these. I have had a lot of replies. 30 or so of them that I can actually read out and discuss with you. Some of you have just gone into games like video games, and that's fine. I don't mind that. I can discuss video games for a while, but this is mainly going to be about tabletop wargaming. By howdy, do we have a lot of spicy opinions on tabletop wargaming that we're going to get into right now. First of all, if you like my channel and you're not subscribed, then please subscribe to the channel. That would be awesome. That would be fantastic. I never do the YouTube stuff, do I? I always just get on with the video. But anyway, let's get on with the video. Sons of Skulls says, sadly, in my era and in my area, it's Magic the Gathering, the trading card game. Dude, it takes an absolute pounding, doesn't it, whenever we do one of these. I used to be a part of the community, but the amount of people who place their whole life identity on winning a card game is ridiculous. The idea that winning a card game makes you a master strategist while playing net decks blows my mind. Like, no self-produced strategy or self-procured intelligence is being displayed here, and this is the cornerstone of what your self-identity is. Very sad. Okay? It should be called Money the Gathering. Just cut out the middleman. Just purchase expensive cardboard to win. Game has hundreds of cards and tens of thousands of options, but only comes down to one of the 8 net decks that is allowed. Also, with this esport mentality and constant rotation, is not sustainable. Also, the last store I played at last year, pre-Nurgle's Rot, they had the worker go around and spraying Febreze because too many people couldn't shower or wouldn't, and rage at the store manager if they were asked to get better hygiene. The poor lass, the manager, had no support from higher-ups and they told her to figure it out, so she brought the Febreze spray with her own money. Yes, this has become the norm. It's cheaper than losing business, I suppose. I met great people in the game, though, and made a tight friend group of normies. So everybody is like this in the hobby, and I hope it doesn't discourage anybody from enjoying the hobby, just my personal gripe. But hey, one step how I fell into Warhammer and found my perfect army. World Eaters happily married, wife's getting into Emperor's Children. So hey, it all worked out in the end. Enjoy your hobby all. Okay, cheers man. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. At Exile Fest, I brought some deodorant and stuff. It was never used. And this is why I say hygiene is non-negotiable. It's a non-negotiable for me. You should have felt the heat at Exile Fest. The heat was unbearable. It was immense. It was so bad. I thought a few of us might get heat stroke. It was that bad. Okay, I'm not exaggerating. When you walked from the chill out room to the gaming room, the heat hit you like a wall. No windows, just fans. And after about 3 or 4 hours, all they're doing is blowing around hot air, right? So, unfortunately, that was going on, but not one smell was had. I smelt no, sweat. I smelt no bad smells, right? People, I spied 1 or 2 people spraying themselves down halfway through the games later on. That's fine, And the ladies that were there were walking around going, hey, it's really hot in there, but no smell. That's all good, right? I even sent 1 or 2 of them in there to just walk around, right? And just to check, and it was all fine. Right, I have very high standards when it comes to this stuff. So these dudes are basically playing wargaming in hell. That's the heat of it. It's hell, right? And they don't smell. So for me, I'm sorry, being well kept, being not smelly is a non-negotiable in my gaming spaces. If I find you like that, I will say, hey man, no offense, but you probably need to go take a shower. Right? It's non-negotiable. You're ruining everybody's day by being that way. There you go. Anyway, Jethrick says, this is an interesting one. Final Fantasy X-2. Wow, okay. I loved Final Fantasy X and pre-ordered this game back in the day. It's still the biggest disappointment I've ever had upon loading up a game. After 2 or 3 of the weird dress change animations, I was out. What in the hell were they thinking? Jethrick, they're Japanese. Case closed. Alright? Case closed. That's it. I quite enjoyed 10-2 for what it was back in the day. I don't think I'd enjoy it now, but back in the day when I was a kid, yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was. It was just the sequel to this game that had, like... It's focusing on Yuna and now she's a pop star. That kind of rocked me a bit. I was like, what? Okay. Ugh. Anyway. SSJ Ramley says, I hate Monopoly the most. You see how people like took this and ran with it? I hate Monopoly the most. It's all about pulling money out of other people's pockets, and if they run out of money, straight to jail. It's like real life. It's like living in Liverpool. Anyway, Throwaway Clover says, Blood Bowl hands down. I genuinely do not understand how people enjoy it. Losing at it is terrible, and winning at it isn't fun. I get it, but Throwaway Clover, are you a sports person? This is the thing. Most of the dudes I know who love Blood Bowl like American football or soccer football, right? And they tend to be very British. So the British men, they don't get their football fix at Warhammer, and then all of a sudden Blood Bowl comes out, and here we go, right? They got their sports fix. I've seen dudes with stadiums. I've seen dudes with their own leagues. I've seen dudes, you know, doing their own tournaments and championships, and it's fun. It's really, really, really good. I think you may have had your mind turned because you had a few bad games, and maybe you're not into sports in general. We'll see. Duppyman695 says, oh, this is the first mention of it, of the worst games you've come across. He says, it has to be 40k, based on rules and how bad they are. Not only the old-fashioned I go, you go, but so many problems with the mechanics. Also how most of the rules are just marketing, rules written to sell models. I like my marketing and my rules to be two separate things. I get you, man. I'm with you. Like, I think, weirdly, succinctly, you've hit on the nail of the head of what's bad about Warhammer these days, about 40k. You know? Rules are made to sell you plastic. They're not made to actually make a good game. That's the issue here, I think. You know what I mean? The I go, you go thing, that is a relic of the past, and that is something that Games Workshop are holding on to with white knuckles, just refusing to let it go at all. And yeah, I completely agree. Completely agree. I think it's how do I put this? I think other games have shown her up for what it is. Okay, things like one-page rules. The games flowed so much better on the weekend, man. People were getting on so well and having fun. All of the photos I've shown show that every player is engaged and looking at the table and laughing and joking and smiling and they're communicating the entire game through. If this is 40k, one of those players is standing there on their phone while the other player is moving his models and doing all of his turn, right? That's how they've not playtested that and gone, do you know what? This sucks. This really sucks. Who wants to stand here for an hour watching another person move their toy soldiers around? This isn't a game. This is a queue. It's a queue with dice rolls. That's what 40k is, right? And no one will ever talk me down from that ledge. It is a queue with dice rolls. You're just standing there waiting for your turn. Anyway. Warboss Fitz, how's it going, man? One of my favourite YouTubers, Warboss Fitz. If you like OPR, go check him out. Go check him out. I have found over my years of playing lots of different games that people you play the game with can make or break a game. Yeah, I think we need to say this to the Throwaway Clover guy who doesn't like Blood Bowl, yeah. We would have guys bring in all kinds of games from sci-fi to ancients, chip-based to sailing ships. If everybody is on the same page, it's all good. Yeah, I think that's a good philosophy to go by. Barbecue Addict says, I went into a store once hoping to find some cool models to paint, just to find maybe 6 Magic the Gathering players crowded around a small table. This store was small, mind you, so I couldn't even really get inside. And one of the players had super greasy hair and was wearing a tuxedo. Of course they were. They also stank, which made me run out to spare my nose. That's the only experience with Magic the Gathering players where it definitely was rough and enough for yours truly. On a positive note, I really love Black Seas, and anyone who loves that era of ships should try it. The rules are simple, and what I guess a beer and pretzels game should be. I don't know how much of the community there is, as there's basically nobody in the hobby in my small town, but even then, solo plays are still fun. Okay, so if you like the black powder, the age of black powder, you've got a recommendation from Barbecue Addict there. He says, go and try Black Seas. I might try that. I might try that next time I'm having a beer with my mates. Ipsimus says, literally all of them. Dude, you're on the wrong channel. If I ask you, what's your least favourite war game, and you say all of them, what are you doing here? Maybe hate watching, I don't know. People from Reddit hate watch me. Hi, people from Reddit. Have you gotten laid yet? No? Colour me surprised. Ipsmus says, literally all of them. I look too good and acted too normal, which is apparently a huge threat to the people that usually play these games. Get off your high horse, Brad Pitt. How good do you look, Ipsimus? Come on. How good do you look? Please comment. This got a lot of likes, by the way. Right? I got met with bullying, snide remarks, and ultimately ostracized. That's not cool. How dare I step into their world, or whatever their logic was? Oh well. I took up urban exploration instead. Well, urban exploration, it seems pretty cool, man. I've seen a lot of the videos that people do on those things. It does seem pretty cool. But on you, again, do you know why I look at these with a bit of trepidation when people say this stuff, right? I'm an average-looking bloke, okay? Average-looking. I truly think, and I am not photogenic, I'm one of those weird dudes, right? That if you see me, like, I've had people say to me, right? Okay, this is going to be really personal, but I used to be on Tinder way back in the day. Way back in the day. And I would get dates with women. And I'd turn up, and they'd be like, oh, wow, you're really good looking. And I'd be like, what? We've been talking online, you know what I look like. And they hold up my Tinder, and they go, no, you don't. You look awful. Like, you're not very photogenic. I don't know what it is about how the light hits you, or the flash on the camera, but there are very rare photos where I look like me. Do you know what I mean? And the ones that I do look like me, I save them and go, oh, look, that's a good one. And I put that aside. But there are very few that actually look like me. Especially if I was friends with them on Facebook as well. Because, like, my Facebook photos are all me in the wild, just doing other things. I look awful. You know what I mean? Here are your 9 chins, you know. And then you meet me in real life, and I don't have 9 chins. I have 1 chin. And that's just, you know, it's just the cameras, you know, the angle I was leaning at and things like that. So, like, I've always either been doing something stupid whilst I've been photographed, or I've got a stupid look on my face, or the light just hasn't hit me right, or I'm just leaning one way or the other. I'm super awkward. For some reason, all my photos are shit. Terrible, right? But I would turn up to Tinder dates and I'd be like, oh, wow, you know, this is great. I thought I was going to be, oh, I hope he has a really nice personality. That kind of thing. So, yeah, like, I'm not, I look like that, right? I'm an average-looking dude. I'd give myself a 6 out of 10. My missus would give me a 10, right? And that's because she's my missus, of course she would. But, like, I'd give myself a 6. So meet in the middle there somewhere, right? Probably 7 or an 8, right? Meet in the middle. And I've never come across this, really, right? I've never really... I felt it every now and again. Not like a vibe of, okay, you're a normie, you're not one of us, okay? But I've actually been on both sides of this fence. But I've never really had it in the wild where somebody's literally tried to bully me because I look too good and act too normal, okay? This is why I look at this, because I think I'm like you, Ipsimus. I think I'm of a similar level, shall we say? And I've never come across it. Which is why I always look at it with trepidation when somebody says, I'm far too good looking, and that's why they hate me. It's like, well, are you sure you weren't a dick? Do you know what I mean? Are you sure you weren't a bit of a dick? Are you sure you didn't enter into the hobby with the same attitude you just had in that comment? Do you know what I'm saying? Because if you entered into the hobby with that attitude, I'd be like, yeah, this guy's a dick. You know what I mean? Like, oh my god, I'm too good looking to be here. I'm too normal to be here. Ugh, I'll just go and do urban exploration instead. These are all nerds and they smell. Well, if you come into a setting and a hobby like that, you're going to get pushed back. I'm not saying that's what you did. I'm just saying I like to look at all sides of the story when people say very out there things like what you just did. I will assume you're telling the truth and that maybe urban exploration is for you. Yeah, awesome. Brilliant. I'm never going to do it, by the way, on the channel because I would end up getting... I'd end up as somebody's bitch around here. Yeah. You do urban exploration in like suburbs of Liverpool, you will be somebody's bitch. And that's just how it's going to work. Kevin Howes says, simple, it's 40k. I've played long enough to see its flaws and heard the ways other game systems have created new ways to play that admittedly do look a lot better and feel a lot better to play. But I have a busy job and limited time. 40k is hands down the easiest game to just line up an opponent and play in my free time. No seeking out clubs on obscure discords, just show up at the store or text a buddy and play the game. Yeah, that's the main pitfall, isn't it? You know, you are trapped by 40k. This is why people start to resent it. You are trapped by it. Utterly trapped. You hate it, but you can't play anything else because nobody plays anything else. Which is why channels like me try and push you in new directions. But anyway. Mayor French says, my least favourite... Oh, wow. Let me take a sip of my tea before I go any further. Ah, glorious. Glorious. Right. Mayor French says, my least favourite tabletop RPG was Middle-earth Roleplay, which was a simplified version of Rolemaster by Iron Crown Enterprises. You actually needed a scientific calculator for character creation. How powerful your character was depended on one die roll to determine race. The combat charts were ridiculously complex. My least favourite video game was Descent on the PlayStation, the original one. The game itself was fun, blasting away at rogue robots and rescuing hostages. What's not to like? Sadly, after about 2 hours of playing in the 3D maze levels, I would end up with motion sickness. I haven't played first-person shooter games since. I guess it was my aversion therapy. Alright, very interesting, very interesting. Has anyone else had that experience? Let me know. Akamuski says, most live service games. They're great for picking up a quick game when you don't have time to invest in something big, and I must admit, I really do like Helldivers too. However, while Helldivers keeps you engaged with an ongoing story that you and the players are actively steering, many other live service games keep their games alive with an endless pile of characters and skins and season passes. It's like an everlasting cry to buy their slop so they don't have to innovate. I love games that have an ending and that tell a story, or simply just have a satisfying end game that leaves me not only happy with my purchase, but also quite happy to say I had my fun with that game and I can leave it uninstalled in my Steam library until I want to revisit it. Knowing I can, because I don't need an internet connection to play it. Although, of course, you need to download it again, but hey-ho, this is the modern era. Dude, modern gaming in a nutshell. Yeah, modern gaming in a nutshell. You know, when corporate gets involved, they say, well, why are we making some money now when we can make all of the money forever, right? Although that very rarely works, right? They make less and less and less and less and less money as years go on. It just, yeah. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of live service games myself. You know, I'm not a big fan of them. Anyway. Stephen Marsh says, honestly, Blood Bowl, it looks interesting. And all, but when you get it, I'm instantly flaccid. It's okay. Thank you for talking about your penis. Ben Stapleton says, for the wargaming side, Warhammer 40,000. Alright, this is like the fourth time this has turned up. The fact that you do everything with your army before passing to your opponent makes for very uninteresting gameplay. Not only do you have the problem of losing a significant portion of your army before your first turn if you go second, but it also lends itself towards combo play with no drawbacks. If your opponent has a chance to disrupt the combo, then it becomes a much more interesting test of strategic ability. Nowadays, I mostly play Marvel Crisis Protocol, despite being mostly apathetic towards the Marvel characters, sans Spider-Man and Daredevil, because it's just so well designed. It really does feel like superheroes and supervillains going at it on the tabletop. We also want to give Chain of Command a try, as well as Silver Bayonet. Bayonet. What am I doing? Yeah, you've hit on the same points that we had before. Yeah, but like you literally... Do you know what it is, Ben? It's back in the day, you never would have said this because there were no alternatives. You know what I mean? Back in the day, you would have just got on with it and been like, well, you wouldn't even have known that, you know, I go, you go is a problem because it wasn't called that. It was just Warhammer, and it's just the only bit thing in the room to play. So you thought this is what wargaming is. I go, I use all my stuff, then you use all your stuff, right? Only niche people who were into things like, you know, War Master and stuff, and not other games like that, sort of saw that you could do other things. Do you know what I'm saying? Anyway, from the RPG side, D&D 5th edition, I just don't think the mechanics of the game inform the fiction of it very well anymore. There's almost no decisions to make while creating characters in the base rules, which is why most groups use homebrew rules like multi-classing. And most egregious of all of them isn't trying to do anything specific, and so it becomes a lot less interesting. Been loving Pathfinder 2nd edition for my fantasy action RPG, but my favourite tabletop RPG is Dread, because it captures horror so excellently. Is Dread the one that you use Jenga? Yeah? Because I played that game, and it is brilliant. Okay, those of you who don't know, Dread is basically you build a Jenga tower, an actual Jenga tower, right? You all have 2 to 3 attributes that you're really good at, and whenever you're asked to do something extremely difficult with those attributes, or when you're asked to do something outside of those attributes, you have to pull from the tower if there's any peril there whatsoever. So if you're being chased down by a werewolf or something, right, and you're trying to climb a tree, then you have to pull from the tower, right? If the tower falls over, you die. You're dead, right? And the GM will tell you how you died. Really good way of doing horror. I really loved it when I played it. It's such a hard sell, though. Nobody really wants to play it. Lucci says, Final Fantasy VII. Dude, I'm with you on this. I'm with you on this. Listen, I'm sure I played through Final Fantasy VII when I was a kid, right? I preferred Final Fantasy IX. Here's what I'll tell you about Final Fantasy, and you can take this to the bank, okay? All right. Final Fantasy VII is the most famous one, okay? Final Fantasy VI is the most game-changing one, and Final Fantasy IX is the best one. Fight me. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm telling you. It is 6, isn't it? I haven't got that wrong. Or is it 4? Final Fantasy... I think it is 6. It is 6, yeah. Yeah, so 6 is, like, the most, you know, groundbreaking one. 7th is the most famous one. And 9th is the best one. That's it. That's where we are. Anyway, he says, Final Fantasy VII. I was a big fan of games like it when I was younger, like Legend of Dragoon or Legend of Liga. When I tried playing Final Fantasy VII, I was so incredibly bored, I didn't even finish the first act. Well, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I think it's a decent game, but do you know what it is with Final Fantasy VII? It's the constant retreading of it. They keep going back to it, and they keep re-releasing the same slop, the same stories from different angles, like they can't do anything else. And then when they do bring something out that is interesting, like Final Fantasy XVI, that has a really interesting story, a really Game of Thrones style Final Fantasy story that's really good, right? They bog it down with really crappy gameplay. The gameplay of Final Fantasy XVI feels ridiculously good, but also it's so easy, it may as well not be there. It's a waterfall coloured in. It's silence coloured in. You may as well not... The game can play itself, right? It's like they didn't even try. They hamstrung the best story they've told in decades. I'm serious. If you like Final Fantasy stories, play 16. Forget about the gameplay. The story is one of the main... It's one of the best things they've done in years. Probably since 9, or maybe 10. 10. I'm going to say 10. It's the best story they've told since 10. Alright? It's really, really, really good. But the gameplay lets it down. They didn't even try. Hold this button to win. They didn't even try. Even when you try and make it harder, it's that easy. You know? And then when you see yet another Final Fantasy VII remake or spin-off or whatever, it just makes you so bitter. You're like, dude, why? What is your infatuation with this fucking game? Alright? It was good on the PlayStation. Let it go. Jesus. Anyway. Dark Knight Curion says, I've only ever played Warhammer 40k, 3rd edition to current, Warhammer Fantasy, 7th and 8th, and Battletech. As much as I heavily dislike the direction of 40k since 8th edition, Fantasy just never really clicked for me. I think it might be due to my military service, as my brain is hardwired these days for modern conflicts and warfare. The way the ancestors conducted warfare is like an alien language to me. It's fascinating, yet impregnable at times. I get that, man. I get that. I don't agree. Imagine the balls it would take, not just have an enemy in your sights with a gun, but to have a piece of sharp metal in your hand, and you're marching forward, and you've got to see the white of their eyes as you kill them to win the battle. You know what I mean? There's something so... It's not romantic, but it's like epic. It's like, oh my god, Jesus, that, you know. So think of it that way. Anyway, moving on. Jenza Blefleur. We've commented back and forth a lot of times. Yeah, she's cool. I'm so sorry to people who are into it, but I'd honestly rather buy a deck of cards from Poundland and play a few rounds of Hearts than ever be at a Magic the Gathering table ever again. Once was enough. Pretty art, but it felt like such a dry and turgid game. My reaction was, people pay all of this money for this? Okay, yeah. We've heard that before. Can't really say much else there. I don't think you've hit the nail on the head. Dane Fleck says, anything that the fans take overly serious. I'm a guy that just likes to come home and play games when I'm off work to relax. Naturally, I'm not the best because I can only play a few hours a week. I hate getting bullied by losers that just sit playing the same game all day. No hate from me if that's your jam, but don't hate on me for having to work and having limited availability to grind games and become god tier. Thanks, North. I'm with you, man. This happens in video games too. This happens in video games as well. Like, you know, you get so many people who just love games like Dark Souls because they can just sit there all day and perfect it, but you've actually got shit to do. So you're like, yeah, dude, I'm not playing this for 6 hours, sorry. You know. Even with a masterpiece like 2.0 Cyberpunk 2077, I can only play for 2, maybe 3 hours. 3 hours for me is a long session of gaming, and I have to stop. I lose interest. I'm like, okay, I'm done. My brain goes, there are other things you could be doing. Go and write something. Go and record a video. Go and write scripts. Go and answer emails. Go and do something else. My brain needs to do something else. If you've got the kind of brain, because you don't have a job and you don't have anything going on, we can sit there for 7-8 hours, raw dogging a game. All power to you, mate. And I'm never going to take the piss out of you. But if I'm not taking the piss out of you, you sure as hell don't have the right to have a go at me because I've got a fucking life. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is why me and most Dark Souls players don't really get along. Because, like, well, you're not very good at the game. Well, I beat the first few bosses and then got bored. Because I keep running up against the same predictable... Where are the hitboxes now? Who knows, huh? Game just decides on a random because it's so hard and so difficult. I've got no challenges in my real life, so I need to play this game that gives me massive amount of challenge that I can smack my head against. And if you can't do that, then you're just not a real gamer. Go fuck yourself. Alright? That's why we don't get on. That is Space Wolf fan mentality. I don't put up with it. Alrighty? Touch grass, get laid is my comeback there, if you want to call it that. Alright? Just go and do your own thing. Now, there are many based Dark Souls fans who just play Dark Souls and are naturally very good at the game. I applaud you, sir. I doff my hat to you. But the vast majority of people who don't like my opinions on Dark Souls games tend to be jerking off into Kleenex. Just saying. S. Pudno says, it's hard to say what could truly be the worst tabletop game, as having a fun group of players with you can make most of the most flawed game feel enjoyable. Yeah, you're right. Dude, what you just said there is why 40k is still popular, right? Any game can be fun if you're against a really cool person. However, there are certain games that are purposefully designed to bring out the worst in people. Enter Fatal. When an RPG has a chart where you roll for the size of your character's intimate orifices, you know it's a game for adolescent edgelords by adolescent edgelords. Dude, that sounds horrible. That sounds terrible. Get it away from me. Get it away. I don't need to know anything else about that game. Get it away. Goodbye. Eric Smith says, Warcry. Ooh, we've never had Warcry before. There isn't a single team that calls to me, and I'm a models first person. I want to kit bash at a special crew, and just don't get the appeal when I look at my options. Fair enough, dude. Fair enough. Carl7 says, Scythe. Oh, really? A frustrating and slow board game with difficult mechanics. I have no idea how it was so highly regarded by the board games community. Dude, I've got a story about Scythe. Like, me and my sister don't get to spend too much time together, so when we do, it's actually kind of precious when we go out and we do something, right? The last time we did this was January 2020, before the world kicked off. We went to Sugar and Dice here in Liverpool, and we played a two-game version. No, not even version. We played a two-game two-player session of Scythe. And if that's... all people who know Scythe go, you did what? Yeah, and we had loads of fun. We totted up everything incorrectly, right? And I lost badly because I was scoring the game one way and she was scoring the game in another way. And we didn't actually communicate how we were scoring because you've got to keep that thing separate towards the end. And yeah, and we were like, whatever, we had fun. And it kind of made me realise that, you know what, it doesn't actually matter who wins. Like, I had fun playing the game with my sister and she had fun too, right? Like, I had to score, like, 27, thinking I'd won. She had to score, like, 162. Because she was counting it in a different way. I think she was counting it in the correct way, and I was counting it in the incorrect way. So I would have had, like, it would have been, like, 159 to... She would have won still. It would have been, like, 159 to 160 something. But anyway, not that it matters. Like, we had fun. And you know, we went home, and I had fun, and that was all that mattered. So yeah, that's my Scythe story anyway. So Scythe's got a nice place in my heart because of what we did. But I think the game doesn't matter, dude. As long as you're having fun and you're spending time with the ones you love and you're having a good time. You know, again, me and my sister are very, 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 very busy people, and we only tend to see each other at family gatherings. And even then, you can't really go play a board game or shit. You're just catching up. You know, how are you? You know, and doing all that stuff. So. That was a really good memory for me. Anyway, I'll Do Gaming says, I loved playing D&D 5th edition and Pathfinder 2nd edition, even to the point I started planning a campaign to Dungeon Master myself. I kid you not, I must have put hundreds of hours into homebrew lore, maps, strange encounters, including a gnome called Yeet and a machine that resembles a steam-powered ED-209, with a faulty tower surprise. But my enthusiasm was killed by a selfish simp DM who made me severely question my self-belief and the game in general. Yeah. That just sounds horrible. One thing I will say, dude, don't put your creation into somebody else's hands. If you're going to write something that epic, do it yourself. Do you know what I mean? Do it yourself. You owe it to yourself. If you're going to do something that epic, do it to yourself. Are you ready? Let me just see here. Alright, cool. Let's move on. Tiger Topaz says, or Topaz Tiger, let me take a quick sip of my tea before we jump into what you said. Alright. Topaz Tiger says, I don't know if this counts, but Monopoly. Twice! We've had Monopoly. Twice! What's going on? What's going on? I've never met anybody who actually knows the rules to the game, nor have I ever seen an ending to a session. There's also Infinity. From what I remember, it was vastly more complicated than Kill Team, and I can't remember exactly, the models were in metal, and that turned me right off. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Reverend Domo says, more of a tabletop RPG, but I never really had a good time playing Vampire the Masquerade. Dude, don't tell the guys at Black Lodge Games. Do you know what? I need to examine this. I need to get onto them to talk about Vampire the Masquerade, because they love the game, but on the flip side, they seem to like really not like certain aspects of the modern fandom over there, and that's something I really want to get into because it's kind of how I feel about 40k sometimes. Tried the game out several times in my youth and found the crowd the game drew seemed to be made up of people that were either taking the setting way too far too seriously, they saw the Lost Boys once too often, were doing it in a thinly veiled attempt to get their leg over with a goth girl, or were obvious theatre kids who got a bit too into their roles. I just found it all horribly cringe-inducing and rapidly moved on to a different scene. I know that maybe with a better crowd the game could have been more enjoyable, but the well was poisoned for me, and the thought of trying again just filled me with dread, and not a small amount of embarrassment. Dude, here's the thing, and I'm gonna lay this all on the line, alright? If you play Vampire the Masquerade, or Vampire the Requiem would be a better example, right? It's based Vampire the Masquerade, essentially. If you play Vampire the Masquerade with a group of adults who are really into telling their story, right? Who don't take it too seriously. They're not theatre kids, right? But they get into their character and they make decisions based on what their character would do, and you've got a really good storyteller, and they're all grown adults who are consenting and are there having a good time. Not cringe at all. If you get a group like that, Vampire the Masquerade is the most immersive, best role-playing game on Earth. Because it's based today. It's based now. You can base the game in your own town, right? It's incredibly immersive. You know, urban vampires killing each other is just cool. It's just cool. There's like so many movies have been made about it, right? So if you can get a good group together, dude, you are in for a good time. The problem is, if one of those things is off, it becomes the worst role-playing game you could ever play. If just one of those things is off, if you have one problem player, if your GM or storyteller isn't quite up to the mark, if people are going there to kind of cosplay, or it all falls apart. It's an all or nothing game. Okay? Which is why I really, really, really envy dudes like Black Lodge Games who actually have a decent group to play with, or have had a decent group to play with in the past, right? Because I would love one, but they're very hard to find. Jen is back, folks. She's a doofer McToofer. She says, sorry for the double post, but I can genuinely go my entire life without playing another game of Smash Brothers ever again. Regardless of whether you're in the camp that plays with the items, or on the items off, a huge argument in itself, apparently. I just don't understand how people can sink so many hours into such a bland and unengaging game. It's like they've taken the worst of platformers and the worst of fighting games and slapped a load of wacky items and recognizable IPs on top of it. I'll never get the appeal, even with a few drinks and playing it as part of the gaming night before a night out. Putting the game on the TV used to kill the vibe of the room stone dead. I've known games like that. I've known video games like that. It's like the opposite of Mario Kart, right? Mario Kart, if you're having fun and you're going to the club, and you've got the guys there, throw on some Mario Kart and get the drinks going. Like you're just howling with laughter. We always had a handful of people that liked it, and then the rest of the room groaned when it was booted up, so it just wasn't for me. Got you, man. With you. I can understand. Somebody else said, I completely agree. It only works when nobody on the couch is any good at the game. Yes. Stefano says, I hate Talisman. It's the fantasy version of Monopoly. Yes, dude. I hate Talisman. It's the fantasy version of Monopoly. I'm using that. I'm stealing it. My channel, my rules. Ken Upton says, Star Wars anything. I hate Star Wars. Alrighty. Infinity. The models are ugly. Bolt Action. Not interested in World War II tabletop. Malifaux. Cards and every model is far too specific. Marvel, whatever it's called. No interest in owning comic book stuff. Pretty much any non-Games Workshop game. Ugly models or based on a franchise I'm not invested in. Alright, dude. Alright, you sound like a 70-year-old man, but like, those are your tastes. Fine. Pretty much any non-Games Workshop game. I get you, right? Like, Games Workshop do the really nice models, but you can use those models in other games. OPR being a big example, right? And there are games out there with good models. Stop lying to yourself. There are games out there that have good models. Okay? You know, open your lion eyes. There are many out there. Look at Minimaker's website. That's all I'm saying. Read, Watch, Listen says, I wanted to love Battletech, but the gator combat mechanics are probably the worst ever written. After 4 years of trying, I finally bailed on the game. Fair enough, dude. Fair enough. And that is the video. We've gone through every single one of these, so thank you so much if you sent me in your opinion. I love you a long time. I'll be back tomorrow with some more hobby nightmares. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you very, very, very soon. All right, stay safe. Bye-bye now.